What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show, man. Recap with Mo, where we getting ready to get down into another episode breakdown of BounceTV's own Johnson series, alright? But before we get into this thing, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit snit that's going down right here, alright? So let's go ahead and get into this thing without hesitation. The episode we're getting ready to talk about is Season 3, Episode number 8, titled Uncommon Ground. Now, the synopsis for this episode states that Jarvis hangs out with his new family and realizes how much they don't have in common. Keith challenges Alan Garrett at the city council meeting, while Omar's relationship with Eugene is tested after an encounter with the patron turns violent. Alright, so now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this recap. Alright, so we start this episode off with Keith, who is chilling at his crib when he receives a knock on the door, and it just so happens to be his mom. Now, we already knew from the previous episode what went down, that his mom was going to be knocking on that door, alright? So, if you don't recall what happened previously, that Keith called the radio station to talk on Eugene's radio platform, and he pretty much, put it out there that he has a problem with the man that his mom is currently dating, and his name is Booker. So his mom is coming over there to address that situation. So when she knocks on the door, he's like, well, who is it? She was like, boy, let me off in this house. He was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let you in. So going on from there, he lets his mom in. So we already knew that conversation was going to be had once he finally settled down in there. But from there, we go to the bank where we see Omar, who is attempting to deposit the check that Jarvis gave him in the previous episode. Now, just to recap just a brief moment, Jarvis gave all of his guys $50,000 apiece so they can go out into the world and achieve their dreams. Whatever their hearts desired, go on out there and do what you need to do to achieve it, right? So, getting back to where we are now in this episode, Omar is now at the bank depositing this money, or attempting to deposit this money, when he presents the check to the bank representative. Of course, she looks at the check and the amount, and she was like, oh, okay. After pulling up his information, she's obviously seen what he has in the account, how old the account is. So now she's asking Omar, what do you do as a profession? Because now she's inquiring, like, does the money add up? Like, what you do? And truth be told, I worked in banking about 12 years. And, we have to ask those questions to protect ourselves, first and foremost, as well as the bank. Now, we'll get into some other stuff later, but of course, it's just general knowledge that typically banks will ask certain questions, definitely if the account is brand new or you haven't been an existing customer for quite a while. So, going on from there, we head back over to Brother Keith's house, where we see his mom going in on him like, what the hell were you thinking about going on the radio, going on Eugene's show to out Booker when I'm enjoying Booker's company? And he was like, look, Mom, you do not know Booker. And she was like, well, okay, let me tell you what I do know about him. He treats me well. He opens doors for me, woo, woo, woo. And he was like, okay, that's fine. And she was like, well, I do recall Booker stating that you guys had a little situation back at the crib. And it was like, yeah, he said this, he said that. And she was like, look, I've raised you to be a man, and I need you to go on out there and do that. But it's my time now to have some fun and get back into the swing of things, all right? And I just need you to respect me on that. So Keith is like, okay, I get it. I'm going to attempt to be better, and I'm going to be more supportive of your decisions. And he really doesn't have a damn choice, because that's his mother. So, so you might as well just leave it alone, Keith. But, I was tripping at her comments when she stated that, he still wears creases in his pants. and still wears cool water cologne. Now, listen, I felt some type of way about that, y'all, because truth be told, I still rock creases from time to time because I just honestly feel that sometimes slacks still look good with a crease in them. And I'm not even old, but I just think that it's, it gives it a more polished look from time to time. And my dad grew up with creases, and, he always instilled in us that, when a man goes out, you need to look a certain way. So I felt some type of way about that because I was like, shit, I'm not old at all, but I love creases in my pants. And then I also, truth be told, I got a bottle of cool water cologne right here on my dresser. So I felt some type of way all the way around this piece because cool water still rock. You heard me? I rock it with some other stuff too, but cool water is my thing, man. So so anyhow, moving on from there, Keith apologizes like I stated before. So they seem like they're working out their situation, right? So going on from there, we head over to a parking lot where we see Wanda and Greg sitting in a car. And Wanda's like, look, I'm so glad that you decided to do this. And Greg has this look on his face like, I'm not certain if I'm actually into doing this at all. And she was like, well, I hope you had some sleep last night. Whoa. And he was like, no, I actually didn't get any sleep last night. And she was like, well, Greg, you were supposed to get about 8 hours of sleep. But she was like, it's good because she's just glad that he's there and he's able to give his specimen, right? But then Greg switched. Now, Greg is going to tell her, look, I need you to say my piece real quick. And she looks at him like, here he goes, switching the plan. Like, the plan is you need to drop off this seed so we can go ahead and move forward with what my plan is to get this seed and have this child. Now, he conveys to her that he's been thinking about this whole situation, and he tells her that he's actually been thinking about being there for his child. And she was like, look, I've already told you that you will actually be in this child's life, which that was a concern for me as well. But she was like, yeah, I've already told you that you would be a part of this child's life. And he was like, no, but that's not what I'm saying. I just need you to hold off. And she did, all right, respectfully. And he says, look, I don't want to bring a child into this house, into a household that I'm not 100% a part of. And I was like, damn. Listen, y'all, I wish that more couples would think about this. And I know we're living in a context, and I'm just talking to y'all real right now because I was proud as hell of Greg at this moment because I wish that we had more conversations just like this. And the reason why I say that is because oftentimes a lot of people get involved in relationships doing grown folks things, ending up in grown folks situations where they have a child that comes from that. Not always, but sometimes. And the thing is, oftentimes when they go into these situations, they're not thinking about, okay, potentially there can be a child involved in this, and then we break off like nothing has happened. The woman goes on to have the child, and they don't have a relationship with the man that they laid down with. And then you got this child who's growing up in a context without a father potentially. Now, I know in some situations, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, that sometimes the couple being together just isn't the best thing because they don't get along, they don't work out well, it's an abusive relationship, whoop, whoop, whoop. All of these things are true. But at the same time, if that man and that woman can come together and work together, it is far better for that child to grow up in that context with that loving father and that loving mother who both work together to push that child into the best possible position. And I'm going to stand on that 10 toes down. It is the best thing for that child to have both parents in that household, if possible. And I'm going to say that one time, if possible. If it's possible for both parents to be in that household, then definitely let's do that thing. And most importantly, like he stated, I'm setting an example because the father is so very important in that household. And I was like, damn, like, Greg, you know what I'm saying? You done came a long way from the guy that I seen in these previous episodes, but I'm proud of this guy right here because he stood 10 toes down, and Wanda had no choice but to respect him and his statement because she knew what he was saying was true. Now, we're leaving on a high note, but we're getting ready to get into some BS, y'all, because we head back over to the bank. And we see Omar, who has been waiting obviously over 30 minutes at this point, trying to figure out what's going on with his deposit. Now, as I stated previously, I worked in the banking industry before for about 12 years, and it's not this hard, people. It's not this hard. Definitely to this extreme. But anyhow, the woman comes back in. Omar is like, what's going on? Can you tell me what's going on? I'm just trying to make a deposit on this account. And she was like, look, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to deposit this check at this time because due to our policies, we were not able to verify the funds. And quite frankly, we believe that this check is fraudulent. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, first and foremost, all of this going back and forth about you not being able to, quote unquote, approve the funds or authorize the funds, that's left up to the discretion of the bank officer. Now, if she did her due diligence, my part as a banking professional was to have relationships outside of my branch, not only for myself, but for my customers. Now, if she had a relationship with other bankers outside of where she actually worked, she could actually verify those funds. But that's left up to the bank officer if they are willing to do that for the client. But obviously for Omar at this moment, he's not relevant enough for this customer to do that for, because as she stated, you are a new account owner, new business owner, and quite frankly, we don't believe that you're able to, if something was to happen, to cover this $50,000. So Omar is like, look, I just want to know what I need to do, or you can just give me the check back and I can go somewhere else where my business is welcomed. And then he goes on to tell her that his friend was the one that gave him the check so he can invest into his business. And she was like, oh, so I wish I had a friend that was just willing to drop off $50,000. Unfortunately, you don't have that type of friend, baby girl. So go ahead and give this man his check back so he can go and do what he needs to do. Now, this woman conveys to Omar that she's not giving this man the check back and we're going to shred the check. Now, this is the first time, maybe this is something new that I've never heard of, but this is the first time that I've seen somebody take a check, tell me you're not giving me the check back because you believe that it's fraudulent, and then you're going to shred my check. So if this check is actually a valid check, I can actually go to the bank that is drawn on, go get the money, bring it back in here. But I'm definitely not bringing my money back to a place where you're telling me you're going to shred my shit. Like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, that pissed me off right there. And Omar is like, okay, I see what y'all doing. And then she's talking about she's going to have to call the police. So I was like, this is only getting worse, man. And then she's talking about she's going to have to call the police. And she got old boy back in the back. Like, he really don't want to do his job. You can already tell he doesn't want to do it, but he's getting paid to do a job, right? So Omar is pissed off. Shit, I'm pissed off because I know this is not normal procedure, right? So, all right, let's go ahead and move on. We'll talk later about it. So anyhow, going on from there, we head over to Jarvis's new hangout spot with his newfound family, right? So we see his now new dad and his new big brother now sitting on the couch with their jerseys on. I was trying to think, were they Jet fans? I don't know what they were watching, but obviously it was a football game. But it looked like a New York Jet type of situation. But anyhow, going on from there, the father talks about he betted on this game. And Jarvis was like, man, you upset, like, for real? Like, how much did you bet? He was like, $800? And Jarvis was like, shit, like, $800? He was like, yeah. He was like, well, you got that? He was like, no. So Jarvis is like, well, it's not a wise thing to bet if you ain't got the money. And it was like, look, bro, I'm 63 years old. I'm a grown-ass man, essentially, and I don't need no young whippersnapper like yourself telling me what I need to do with my money. But, bro, listen to the wisdom. If you ain't got it, you ain't got it. So why you betting on something you ain't got? Definitely $800. So anyhow, going on from there, he gets up and leaves. Jarvis and his new brother is sitting there, and they're talking about, are we good? And Jarvis is like, yeah, I wish that this whole situation with the jail and all of this stuff didn't go down. Unfortunately, it did, but I'm glad that it happened because now I'm able to, figure out who I really am as a man. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So anyhow, going on from there, we head over to the bar where we see Omar now coming to work. And when he gets there, he just so happens to see Naomi's new friend, Stefan, who is chilling at the bar. So he goes over to the guy at the hostess stand, or what do they call him? One of the security guards, the bouncer, whatnot. And he goes over and states, hey, why is old boy here? Like I told him, I pretty much told everybody that he is no longer welcome. Now, old boy made me feel some type of way because he then turns to Omar and he's like, you don't write the checks. Your uncle does. So pretty much what's coming out of your mouth don't mean diddly squat, old boy. And then he walks off. And I'm like, damn, what's wrong with you, man? Like, are you jealous because I'm now the manager? Like, is that what this is? So anyhow, moving on from there, we head back over to see Keith coming into a council meeting that's been held by Councilman Garrett, who just happens to be his girl Jackie's father, right? So he's opening the meeting to the public to ask questions. So while he's putting that out there, in walks Keith, who is asking how important it is, how important is gentrification in your district? And Councilman Garrett is like, look, we don't actually call it, or we don't actually use that term. We call it redevelopment. Well, whatever the hell you want to call it, that's pretty much where Keith is. And he wants to know, how do you feel about that? So Councilman Garrett is like, look, we really don't have time for it, and it's not actually on our agenda for tonight, so we'll have to save that for a later date. Well, Keith is like, well, actually, I'm not part of this situation here, and I don't think it's out of your way to talk to a potential voter about what's going down in his community. So he looks around and he was like, okay, you got 2 minutes to talk about it. So when Brother Keith gets up there on that damn podium, he gets up there and he starts telling him, like, what's going on in his community, how, different small businesses are having to close and move or relocate or go out of business altogether, right? And he shares with him about the record store that's closing. And Councilman Garrett tries to joke about it, and he's like, look, records went out of business a long time ago. That's not what Keith was talking about. What he's really conveying to you guys, or at least attempting to convey to you guys, is the point that, look, our communities are changing, the prices are rising, and the people who have lived here for decades and generations are no longer able to afford what's going on. And Keith understands that change is going to come. But unfortunately, for those who are not able to withstand those changes, will have to either close down if they own businesses, or if not, if they've been living there for generations, they're going to have to relocate. So anyhow, Brother Keith is like, look, okay, since you want to joke about this situation, I'm about to go for the gut real quick. So then Keith is like, look, okay. So then Keith pulls out that picture from, the role that he had or whatnot, the negatives that he had, and he asked him about that photo and his connection with Griffin Inc. And he stated that this is the #1 contractor in the quote-unquote redevelopment of this community. And he's wanting to know, can you explain your association with them and why you tied to them? So anyhow, Councilman Garrett is like, hold on, wait a minute. Now, I don't appreciate you coming in here throwing out these accusations when you have no actual proof. So Keith is like, all right, I understand that. He said, well, let's go ahead and get into this. And then he drops the code of conduct, section 263, when he says, it states that you, as an actual member of this council, should not be able to vote or act on a matter that they can benefit from due to their association with this group. So old boy Garrett is sitting there pissed off, looking around, don't know what to do, but he already knows that this man right here, Brother Keith, ain't playing about this gentrification or whatever you want to call it going on in his community, because damn it, he paying too much. He paying too much damn money right now, man. So anyhow, he throws that out there. He gets a standing ovation or whatnot. And then we just so happen to see his girlfriend, Jackie, sitting in the back. And she's looking around like, damn, he just served my father. So anyhow, going on from there, we head back over to the bar. What we see now, I don't even understand why he's doing this. So Omar goes over to sit down next to Stefan. Now, Stefan is the guy that is dating or quote-unquote dating his soon-to-be ex-wife, Naomi. All right? So that's obviously why he banned him from the bar. Nothing of what he did on the flip side, but honestly to keep him up out of here, because I don't want to see his face, because I know who he's messing with. So anyhow, while they're sitting here in this conversation, going back and forth, I thought it was going to turn out pretty well until the conversation started to shift, because old boy Stefan is like, so what do you do? Like, and Omar is like, well, I'm actually the manager of this establishment. Well, Stefan turns around and he says, that's crazy, because the bouncer told me that there was an insecure manager who was trying to keep me from coming into this place. He says, and I know you're not that manager, right? Please tell me so. And Omar is in his feelings right now, and he's not thinking about it. So Omar keeps going in at Stefan, and Stefan keeps going in at Omar. And we already know that Omar has an issue with his anger, controlling his damn anger, right? So anyhow, going on from there, they get into this conversation about Naomi, and Stefan sees the opportunity to go in a little bit further. He was like, look, sometimes you just don't realize what you have until it's gone. And he was like, look, I'm there for her support. I'm there to, give her a good conversation. And then Omar turns around and is talking like, oh, yeah, you seem like one of them Captain Save-ems, right? And he was like, no, it ain't none of that. And then he goes in for the punch. He's like, look, I'm there to console her. I'm there to rub on her. And Omar's like, what the hell did you just say? Now listen, he already knew what he was doing, Omar. So he was taking you there. Now you're the manager of this establishment. And now you about to lose your job. What that girl say? You about to lose your job. Like, Omar, you about to lose your job, bro. Because of something, you're allowing another to affect what you got going on. Now, part of this is possibly you pissed off about the $50,000 situation, not getting your check back, but I'm quite sure you'll be able to get that back from Jarvis, all right? But this other situation with Naomi, like, you need to let that go and work that out with her. Now, you're sitting up here fighting this man at the bar. Now, I don't even know how Eugene is going to, well, okay, we'll talk about that. But it's just so crazy, man. It's asinine at this point. So he whoops old boy up, knocks him out cold, right there at the bar. Everybody's standing around and looking. And I'm like, what the hell, bro? Like, what in the hell are we doing, Omar? So going on from there, we head back over to the councilman meeting where we actually see Keith, who's going outside, and he actually meets up with Jackie. He did not know she was there. And while they're in the midst of talking, Councilman Garrett comes out, and he was like, hey, Keith, like, what the hell was that? Like, what were you trying to do in that meeting? And he tells him that he doesn't have the power to control anything, and whatever he said in there is not going to do anything. So anyhow, long story short, Councilman Garrett is like, look, Jackie, let's go ahead and go. Let's get out of this fool's face. He ain't nothing but a sorry-ass photographer or whatnot. And Keith is like, okay, wow, like, the insults, okay, that's not needed. but she's a grown woman. She can make her, she can make up her own mind or whatnot. So Councilman Garrett is like, Jackie, come on, bring your ass on. And she looks at him, then she looks at Keith, and Keith is like just standing there with those eyes on her or whatnot. And the way that Councilman Garrett is talking to his daughter, I believe, pushes her towards Keith, even though she didn't want to, even if she didn't want to go. The way he was talking to her, the way he was demeaning her, the way that he was going at her, man, made her go towards Keith. And oftentimes, as parents, you can go so hard that you could push your child in a direction that you actually didn't want them to go. So, once she leaves and goes with Keith, she turns back around and looks at him, and Councilman Garrett is like, okay, I done effed up. Because you've been shooting down this photographer that potentially could be your competition in the next election. But see, you're underestimating Keith and his position in what he's willing to do. And as we already seen in the meeting, that he got a standing ovation. So if this man decides to turn this around and actually come after you in the campaign, this can be a whole different beast that you got to deal with. And yes, you have been dealing with this community for so many decades, but trust and believe, people are always looking for change. And if they see Keith as the man that's going to bring that change, then you might be out the door, bro. But anyhow, we head back over to the bar, and we see Eugene, which we already knew it was going to go down. Unc is going in on Omar. Omar's like, look, man, I'm sorry about it. I just lost my temper, but you're not just going to sit up here and talk about my wife like that. Eugene is like, oh, so you're the only one that can disrespect your wife. Omar's like, hold on, man, what are you trying to say? Listen to what he's saying, man. You disrespect this woman, but you mad at somebody else saying something to you that you feel is disrespectful, even though you're the reason why all of this is going down, because you didn't do what you were supposed to do when you had Naomi. Now, I'm not sure in this whole situation what percentage that Omar had to do with this, but obviously he is the problem at this moment. Even with getting back with Naomi, he is the issue. And Eugene is like, look, you could potentially end back up behind bars. Most importantly, you're not thinking about your son. The decisions that Omar is making right now could potentially keep him out of his son's life. And we already know how he feels about his son. So anyhow, long story short, Eugene is like, look, I've already talked to Stefan. I've already worked that out. Potentially, he's not going to come after you. He's not going to call the police, but he could actually sue us because you did chip his tooth. Omar's like, shit, I'm going to give him a call from Applebee's. Everything is going to be good. He's still not thinking of the seriousness of this situation. All right? And Uncle Eugene looks at him and he's like, look, man, go ahead and go home. Omar's like, what? He was like, you're fired, bro. And it's like, for real, Unc? And I'm with Eugene at this point, because Eugene is like, look, man, you could have took old boy outside like old school. Let's go to the back of the restaurant or the bar or whatnot and handle our business. But you did this shit in front of hundreds of people who are witnesses. So if he wanted to take out a lawsuit on this establishment, he has a multitude of people he could choose from to sue me and my establishment. So yes, you need to take your ass home. And as a matter of fact, you are banned from this establishment. And Omar is like, for real? And his uncle's like, yeah. And of course, Omar walks out. Man, it was so crazy, man. There were a lot of things going on in this episode. That's pretty much the end of the episode, guys. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this recap, man. I'm enjoying how this show is going. I hope that it is renewed, and I will definitely let you guys know when that time comes. But please like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit snit that's going down, all right? Talk to y'all soon. Peace.